Accessing agent files. Brian Sovryn. Early 21st century anarchist. Creator and host of the podcast Sovryn Tech. By the year 2021, the show would be instrumental in the downfall of various conservative ideologies in the government, helping usher in an incredible time.
Hey, want to take a walk on the wild side and experience the bleeding edge of technology? Then get ready, because it doesn't get much more edgy than this. You're in for a wild ride. You're listening to Sovryn Tech with your host, the man in triple black, the Golden Stallion of the tech world.
That song. Always remember that in a world that loves the state, anarchists are supervillains. But revel in it. Don't think it's a bad thing. Anyway, oh boy. Got another little Sovryn Tech Quickie here for you. And this one is going to be about CES, or International CES, or what used to be called, though you are informed to no longer call it this, and Wikipedia honestly needs to catch up. The Consumer Electronics Show, which is held pretty much every year in Las Vegas. They've been doing it since 1967. I have attended a few times in the past, due to past employment and really just past interest. Really, I would end up there, and then I'd go over to the, at the same time later on, I would go over to the Hilton for the, what some may remember was the Star Trek experience. Boy, it was a hell of a time to hang out on the promenade there. But anyway, this year, and if ever, I don't think I'd ever go to CES ever again. I was victim to the CES flu, that is commonplace, which a lot of people might know about. And what this is just, there's so many people there, and you're there for like a week or however many days, and you end up with, you just end up getting sick. Like somebody shows up with a cold and everybody ends up catching it, just because the overall festivities of the conference. And so, I've definitely been privy to that in the past. But anyway, yeah, the CES, it's kind of known now, apparently, for showing off things that will never get released. Now, I guess that must be a more modern thing, to happen there, because I've certainly seen plenty of I'd have to say most of the things I've seen at CES end up getting released. Depends on which, because there's different sections that you go to. There's like an area for startups. But by and large, the bulk of the things that I think you catch at CES really do become available, and in large part probably recently due to Kickstarter. I think that a lot of the self-funding is what allows that to become a bigger deal. But I remember a couple of years, maybe a decade ago, where I got to say most of what I saw there actually ended up coming out in one form or another. Maybe not by the same company, but they would end up getting bought out by one of the big boys, and it would eventually get released. So anyway, whatever. People talk about that, how this is the place to go to see things that never get released. And I guess to some degree that's true, but by and large, I don't think in my experience, I haven't necessarily found that to be accurate. Of course, maybe in recent booms, lack of booms over the past decade, maybe that wasn't true anymore. I don't know. So anyway, CES. So as far as the good things that have come out of it, but there's certainly plenty of bad things to talk about. But the good things that have come out of CES is, well, really I can think of it. There was a lot of AR and a lot of VR, a lot of augmented reality and virtual reality. Of course, we talked a lot about that in just the past episode 106 of Sovryn Tech, where we had the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy, the amazing Paige Peterson was here as well, and of course Ryan Taylor from the Block Tech group, or the blockchain technology group. That was a fantastic episode. A lot of people really enjoyed it. Glad to hear it was enjoyed. And we talked about virtual reality there. Well, it was definitely a highlight at CES. So now, while I think a lot of these technologies will at least get implemented or whatever, as far as the AR and the VR, maybe this is what people really mean, is that not that the technology doesn't get released, but it never leaves test markets, because it never ends up doing really very well, or it just the technology more flounders. Not that it doesn't come out, just that it comes out and nobody gives a shit. Kind of like 3D and some other TV technologies, which I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't want to get into yet. So anyway, glad to see a lot of AR and VR. Epson had a pretty interesting, Epson had a pretty interesting AR implementation, augmented reality implementation there that seemed to do Google Glass right in a way, if Google Glass can be even done right, but that's another story. Whether you do it right or not, I agree. I have to agree with Mike Elgin's point that, as long as it has a camera on it, people have not been browbeaten into giving up that much, seemingly into giving up that much privacy yet. Certainly they don't mind telling everything that happens on Facebook. They've gotten over that hump, sadly. But, the idea of AR, or of a camera being attached to one's face at all times, that doesn't seem to have caught on as normal yet. So anyway, and I would not anyway, because I debate that that's ever really going to happen, because what it takes, it seems, for that to get over those privacy speed bumps or anti-privacy speed bumps, what it usually takes is the up and coming generation. Okay, like Facebook was hot with with college people, and with college students, and then that just spread from there. Now the thing is that I think if you have Google Glass, I don't know if that's going to catch on with the next. The up and coming generation, whatever that you end up wanting to call that, just because the up and coming generation seems to be very concerned about its privacy from its parents, because there's so much technology and so much apps and hardware and whatever being released and put out there to track the shit out of children. Kids don't want that, because they want to go do things that are socially unacceptable. Not wrong things per se, but things that are socially unacceptable. So I don't see Google Glass catching on just because of that. I don't see, this always on kind of camera that parents would be able to have access to, to be necessarily popular just because of that. So that's sort of my reasoning there. May be faulty. I don't think so, but it might be. So anyway, because I got way off track, one of the good things that I saw come out of CES, and it's already available to buy. Again, this is the thing, people talk about, holy shit, you'll never see this stuff come out. Well, that's not entirely accurate, because this is something that got released, is Dell showed off a new line of computers. Now, there's one within this line that is really interesting. And I know, obviously Dell has gotten beyond, for many reasons, they've gone beyond the whole stigma of, dude, it's a Dell. Ridiculous marketing campaign from the late 90s and early aughts. And Dell, they released the Dell XPS 13. Now, this is a 13-inch computer, okay? And it's really slim. It's not the thinnest or the lightest computer. I guess it's comparable to the thinness of the Air, so maybe it's at least matching up in that regard. It is not as lightweight as one of Lenovo's offerings, which is the lightest 13-inch out there. But here's the thing, is that this Dell XPS 13 is the bezel is only 5 millimeters thick. It's really tiny. So like you could put two of these things next to each other and there's barely a line in the middle of the screen. Okay. So, if you want to do a double screen, you wouldn't do this. This is impractical. It's just proving the point of how thin this is. And what that allows for is, again, not the lightest, not the thinnest, but arguably the smallest overall 13-inch computer out there. And 13-inch for me is kind of a sweet spot. It's as far as screen size and portability. And to make a 13-inch screen size that much smaller, to where it's almost the size of what most would consider like an 11-inch, laptop. Oh, that's amazing. That's exciting for me. I love that kind of portability out of a laptop, because that's the thing with laptops, I had laptops, but I never really took them seriously, honestly, until the netbooks came out. When the laptop became a 7-inch machine, like with the original Asus or Asus EPC, or even the 901HA, there were the 900HA that came out after that, which was a 9-inch screen. When they became the size of a hardback, of a hardcover novel, that's when I took notice. That's when I said, okay, laptops have serious functionality now, because when I'm dragging around, because I remember having an old Inspiron, speaking of Dell laptops, years and years ago, and I, had music on it and whatever. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put this in my car. I had it in the middle of my Lincoln Town car. I'm like, I'm going to put this in my car, and I want to see, so I had plenty of room to put this thing, but it just took up so much goddamn space, and it wouldn't allow the passenger to have fun with me, with it sitting in the middle there. So I just always thought laptops were relatively impractical, for uses outside of, perhaps being at Starbucks, which, I'd never, I wouldn't mind going to Starbucks now, but at the time it wasn't like a thing to do, or for, just carrying it around. But to have it like actually do a shit ton of things, be a big part of, of everything that you're doing. I didn't think laptops were really practical until netbooks hit the ground. And I know netbooks are like an anathema in the tech world today, but I think that's fucking ridiculous, because really that's the space the tablets are filling. They just kind of morphed. Netbooks didn't die. The idea of real mobile computing, mobile productivity computing, and multitasking computing just kind of shifted forms. And really, in many ways, the netbooks are kind of coming back. And I think that this Dell XPS 13 is sort of a tribute to that. But amazingly, again, 13 inches, a 13-inch screen in a computer, the size of an 11-inch, more or less. Just phenomenal. Way smaller than the MacBook Air. And this has the XPS 13. It has the backlit keyboard. It has the Broadwell. It has the latest Broadwell, which, granted, that isn't Skylake. And I know Skylake is supposed to be this quantum shift, or quantum jump in computing. It's not a quantum computer, but it's this quantum leap in computing and or in processors. But I wonder about that, because Intel's kind of done that before, where they said, "Oh yeah, this is going to be the next big shit," and it was by and large underwhelming. So. But the Broadwell chip is an update from the Haswell's which were pretty powerful for what they are, and they still are pretty powerful. But the Broadwell allows for more or less, it allows for kind of if you do it right, a fanless design for one. So the computer you're using can be exceptionally quiet if it's running this Broadwell. But it also allows for great battery life. And that's the other cincher for this Dell XPS 13, which it can get 15 hours if you get the 1080p screen, because they offer it with a QHD screen and touchscreen, and both of those features mean nothing to me. I'm not interested in a QHD screen, and we'll talk about more about pixels in a minute. And I am not interested at all in touchscreens on a laptop. That defeats the whole fucking point. You're just going to have smudges and see reflections all the time on these, touchscreens. I hate them on laptops. So kudos to Dell for offering, a model of this with a 1080p screen and without the touchscreen. That's great. So you've got 15 hours of battery life if you get the non-touchscreen 1080p version with the i5 processor in it. That's incredible. You can also, they sell like this kind of a power pack. Dell offers a power pack, which can charge your laptop. You can connect it to your laptop and you can get another 7 hours. So you're 22 hours of computing. Woo! Now, no one's had the chance to really test this yet, admittedly. But if it lives up, even if it's like 80% of those specs, that's fucking awesome. I love it. Yes, I know there's a Lenovo, was the X220 that can do like, if you put the right batteries in it, it can do like 30 hours. Okay. But this has all the right moves, in my opinion. And, really, and it actually, it's only $1,000. That's where it beats out the X220. I think the X220 is almost twice that if you outfit it, similarly. And, I mean, for $1,000 to have a 15-hour, computer, and with the backlit keyboard and modern specs and all that's fucking exciting. So granted, it won't, this is something that comes with Windows 8. It's not going to run, you could run Linux pretty decently well on it, though I'm curious what the battery life would look like at that point, since a lot of times these companies now, what they're doing with Windows is they're releasing battery optimization software that really does the job, incredibly, like it really, and, even though generally I'll turn that shit off, it really does the job. And Linux, while Linux runs a lot more efficient than Windows, today it's getting to the point to where that battery optimization software, and it may be, that might be a control trick on the part of, Microsoft and the, and the hardware developers. It's where they maybe, if one wants to get conspiratorial, maybe they don't want you using Linux at all. That's maybe that's what that's all about. But regardless, Linux doesn't seem to run as efficiently on some hardware, but by and large, it's still true that Linux will give you the best battery life out of anything, especially if you're using a XFCE or a, an LXDE interface, GUI. So anyway, or distro, whatever you want to call it. So that was the main, those were the two good things, was a lot of the AR, VR, and then that Dell XPS 13 is fucking insane. But there was a lot of bullshit there too. And again, this is a Sovryn Tech Quickie, so we're not going to go too long with all of this. But there was a lot of bullshit, including there was a company called Aurora Tech, which I thought was a real company. Maybe I should look into it, but maybe I'm thinking of Allura Tech or something. But Aurora Tech, which they were trying to sell off a over Unity system. Now, over Unity, we've talked about over Unity energy systems we've talked about on Sovryn Tech before. And I think we more or less debunked at least the ones that were claimed to have been built. And an over Unity system is the idea that something puts out more energy than it puts in. And now this goes relatively against, depending on which way they're explaining it or implementing it, this kind of goes against the first law of thermodynamics, which you can't create more energy than what's there. So, some people want to say, well, it gets pulled out of the air, so you're not really creating more, blah, 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 whatever. Over Unity, as far as, any time we've seen, even by people that apparently know how it all works, that have the schematics, and there's plenty of scam artists out there that will sell you schematics as well as consultation at a very premium price on how to build an over unity, energy production system, okay, or motor, however they implement it. And the one that recently got a lot of press, we talked about on Sovryn Tech, because you notice they never unplug the over unity device that they made. And so, and there's no pictures of it doing what it says it does, putting out more energy or grabbing energy from thin air or whatever the fuck it does, without it being plugged in, to essentially an AC socket. So there was guys trying to schlep that stuff off, and fortunately some reporters were there and questioned them and even recorded them, and they could not explain the technology themselves. So it was definitely a clear money grab, unlike, or not unlike so many things in Silicon Valley, scams everywhere, and people just looking to kind of pull a fast one, on you. Caveat emptor certainly is the order of the day in the tech world. Maybe always has been, though I don't think that that's entirely true. I think there was a time where people were really delivering exciting shit because they loved technology and not necessarily, they didn't have lifestyle obsessions. Okay. So anyway, that's another subject. But speaking of lifestyle obsessions, that segues nicely into some of the largest bullshit to come out of CES this year. And of course, it comes out of CES almost every year. Something that in previous years, in the past few years, actually, that a lot of companies, Samsung, go down the list of Alcatel. I mean, a whole slew of different companies, pretty much as Sony. I mean, you take your pick. These companies were trying to get people to get into 3D televisions. And this might be the number one thing that people think of CES for, is televisions. And this year, holy shit. I mean, it didn't stop. If you were looking for televisions, there was no disappointment to be had there. Since 3D pretty much flopped and failed, and as hard as people marketed and tried to push it onto people, it did not take off at all. And of course, if you look at and there's just, it's kind of funny. I hear a lot of people say, make this claim that, well, you can't stop the forward march of technology. Once it's here, there's nothing that you can do about it. It's here and you have to deal with it. And you're just going to have to figure out, you're going to have to build better technology to combat it if you don't like the technology. Now, I think that whole line of reasoning is absolute bullshit. And 3D is the clear-cut case, because 3D, in fact, the 3D that is even, largely implemented today, it's bombed in theaters, by and large. I mean, very few movies, unless you are in a major metropolitan area, very few movies make it to 90% of the rest of the planet and consuming and viewing public do not come out in 3D anymore, as to where that was different. There was a while there where they're really pushing these 3D films, and you'll still get a few a year, certainly, at least 12 to 20 a year, but not compared to, you used to get a ton of 3D movies a year. You used to get a whole segment of 3D film trailers before you went into the regular trailers when you used to go to theaters. With television, it never took off. I don't think anybody could, much like Google Glass, they couldn't get past the fact that the whole family had to be sitting there like zombies wearing, a big headset or even just, smaller glasses or whatever. People couldn't get over that. And I'm glad that they couldn't get over that, but it proves a point that, because like so many other technologies, 3D went through a cycle. It was cyclical, and that's okay. But it went through the cycle. But here's the point that got proven, is that it was, people didn't fall for it in the 50s and the 60s. And when it came back in the aughts, people didn't fall for it again either. They didn't buy in. And that's the thing. Fine. When the technology's released, it's out there, and what can you do about it? Well, there is something you can do about it. Don't fucking buy it. Don't give in. You know, if you know it's bullshit, then don't buy the bullshit. And tell people, you be vocal about the fact, I think that technology is bullshit. So, can you stop the forward march? Maybe not. But, can you slow down technology? Maybe not. But can you refuse to take part in it? Largely, if you catch it fast enough, you can do that. A good old-fashioned boycotting, more or less, is what that is. And that's worked since time immemorial. So, can you slow down, technology? No, but, not technically, but yes, you actually can, in the fact that you don't have to buy in. Now, will they force the stuff upon you, eventually, kind of like incandescents and CFLs? Well, certainly, but, again, make a big enough stink or, a lack of care or whatever, or, pirate, massive boxes of incandescent bulbs or whatever, smuggle them into the country, which a lot of people have done, buy your lawn darts, and believe me, it's not going to matter. The law. Yeah. Anyway, so speaking of bullshit technology, boy, the TVs, now it's all 4K, not just 4K. Because a lot of people are kind of getting into that. I've definitely seen that creep in as a standard, certainly in the computer, more in the computer world. But they had TVs there that were 8K. They had TVs that were in 21:9. Now, granted, TVs, I like the idea of computer monitors, being in a wider, wider spectrum, or having a wider aspect ratio. Okay, because games can actually adapt. Video games can adapt to that on computers. That doesn't mean your PlayStation 4 or your Xbox One's going to adapt to that. Okay, but for a computer monitor, I think it's an interesting idea, and to have that much more productivity real estate, on say a 30-inch screen or whatever, to have a larger aspect ratio, I think that makes sense. But by and large, even with 4K. There is little, source material. And fortunately, apparently, a lot of people were asking this question at CES. It's like, okay, I see this 4K TV, but what exactly, is there a cable channel that I can watch? No. Is there a video format out there that I can watch? Are there movies recorded in 4K or whatever that I can watch? Well, there's this documentary that takes place in Africa that you can watch. And I mean, how is that a compelling, these TVs cost, the down payments of cars are less than what these TVs cost. And, so it seems like people aren't buying into it this year. I'm amazed. But look at these companies. I mean, how ridiculous, like 8K. I tweeted about this and I was just like, fuck shit. How many pixels do we really need? When does this stop? When does the bullshit stop? These it's really true. These companies are showing you in a very real sense, because again, these TVs aren't the things that are, well, you see them at CES, but then they never come out. No, these are off. A lot of these are probably purchasable today, right now. And I mean, these aren't innovations. These are literally companies telling you what to buy. Now, it's not a new notion. It's not a new idea. That's always been kind of the point of advertising or whatever. But now it's just so fucking blatant that they're not selling you anything that actually matters or somehow improves your life or whatever. They are literally just, they're blatant in the fact that they are, no, you have to have this. And they do these disgusting, and I won't even get into the fact that everything that they were showing on all of these screens was just, video of hot women. Okay. And yes, I know that you could also, you could use these, $10,000 8K televisions to see your high definition pictures, not movies, pictures on them. I get that. Okay. That's something you could use, but holy fuck, if you're using, if you're spending $10,000 on a television to look at your photos, whoa. All right. But this is the thing, the marketing campaigns around this, all of this technology, not just the televisions, around so much of this shit that gets put out there. and again, showing off, like in particular, just walking by them, because they know that you're okay. There's going to be a lot of nerds at CES. What do nerds want? What can't they get? Oh, women. Well, here you go. You can impress women with technology and all this stuff. And listen, there's something to be said, for women digging technology. No one's saying anything like that. There's something to be said for people digging technology and whatever. And I get the argument that, well, if he has a 65-inch television, he must be doing things right. Well, he must be a really, he's earning a lot of money. So I feel safe with him or her or, whatever. No, listen, he probably got it at rent-to-own. Okay, because I think if he's buying, $10,000, $15,000 8K televisions or whatever, he or she, whatever, gender agnostic, fuck it. Okay, if they're buying that, I think they've got their priorities a little bit out of order. So I don't know who exactly everyone plans on wooing with all this technology, with all this bullshit consumer technology. Nonsense. And these ads, you should see the ads. They're unbelievable. You think Samsung's bad. Everybody else is just as bad. Sony's terrible. All these, because they're showing you, oh, look, when you have this technology, holy shit, everybody's smiling, having a good time. You're sitting around beautiful people, and all this shit. It's aspirational marketing, on steroids. It's disgusting. And it's a lie. If it takes that kind of technology to make you happy, this bullshit, because it's not like they're showing off, hey, this is technology, that will keep everything you do completely private from the government, from all this. It's not like I'm not hearing anything out of it that should make someone genuinely, intrinsically happy, perhaps. Value subjective, I know, okay, but really, what is this crap? And if this stuff is making you happy, I recommend maybe do a little work on yourself. Because something's up. Nonsense. Anyway, so the TVs are bullshit. And they really are. So much of the tech that's there is really, it's tech for tech's sake. It's not innovation. It's not something to, help propel people forward or whatever. It's not to help. It's just to sell you something. And there's nothing wrong with, with buying into, things that are pleasing and that do genuinely allow for some kind of a good time. But really, I want to see the real use cases. I want to see, this would be amazing. I would love to see a tech company, do a real ad campaign with their product where they show somebody, and you can do it in time lapse or whatever, and show somebody go through an entire day or a week or something, and let's see how much that technology gets used. Then let's use that as the gauge of value or the gauge of success. Because most of these tech companies are, they're full of shit. And this shouldn't be new to any of my listeners, but I'm just saying that, come on, All right. So just a little in between here. If I haven't, before I get into the last subject, okay, I haven't done a game giveaway in a while. Okay, now some people would say, well, don't video games, aren't they bullshit? No, no, they're not. So if you want, here's something I want, and we'll get back into this topic. Okay. If you would, on Google Plus or Twitter, and Twitter would probably be the best. If you would share your favorite episode of Sovryn Tech, whatever one, it could be a special, it doesn't have to be a full-on episode, you name it. Share your favorite episode, use the hashtag Sovryn Tech. And I actually, just the other day, I saw somebody use the hashtag Sovryn Tech, perhaps for the first time besides me. I know I'm not the only one, but it's been the first time in a long time that someone used hashtag Sovryn Tech, and they shared the show, and I really appreciate that. So share your favorite episode of Sovryn Tech. Use that hashtag Sovryn Tech, and I will do eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and I'm going to give away a copy of Papers, Please, the video game Papers, Please, on Steam. And this is a really interesting game. And in fact, a lot of people have said it's a very anarchist game because, it has to do with, with sort of a East German, a style system where you are, trying to get some degree of freedom, whatever. It's a very unique game, very difficult to describe, but it's very interesting. So if you've been looking to get a copy of Papers, Please, I will, I will eeny, meeny, miny, mo you. I will DM you or PM you the code for it. But just share your favorite episode of Sovryn Tech and just make sure you use that hashtag Sovryn Tech. So anyway, I said I would do that more, and I wanted to get that. I wanted to start doing that. I'll be doing that per episode. We'll be doing, a giveaway of a game. I have a ton of Steam codes to give away for games, and I want to make sure you get value for value. You share. I want you to have the opportunity to get something out of doing that. Okay, and so that's why I released the codes. Or you could just do it, and you could say, you could do like hashtag no game to tell me you don't want the game codes. You just wanted to help share the show, which is a very serious help to me. So anyway, let's get into the last bit. And the last bit I want to talk about is a couple things. First off, ironically, the chairwoman, I believe, for the FCC was at CES. And one of the big topics about CES was Internet of Things. And apparently that was by and large the thrust of what most companies were offering up. And I guess Belkin was doing a really good showing of Internet of Things. And interestingly, the FCC, the chairwoman there, she's the chairwoman of the FCC. She was saying, hey, we need to be really, really cautious about this Internet of Things. There's privacy concerns. There's security concerns. There's a whole slew of concerns over this. And we're not hearing about a whole lot of companies addressing that. Now, some people of perhaps of more capitalist persuasion may say, well, that's the government holding down business, and that's them. They want their piece of the pie, and they want to figure out how to tax, these Internet of Things companies, and that's what that's all about. But I did find it strange that they were so concerned, because at the same time, I think people of a more conspiratorial bent would be like, and which I may be more in line with in this case anyway, is that this Internet of Things stuff is all about control. And why would the government be against control? That doesn't make any sense. So it was interesting. I found it interesting that the FCC was, not very positive about Internet of Things. And I'm sure there's other reasons too that, I don't need to take a whole lot of time exploring here, but you can look into and think for yourself. Always think for yourself, please. But the more interesting thing was one of the guys very positive about Internet of Things, and that was the CEO of Samsung. And he made some interesting statements. One of them being is that he was more or less laying out that in the very near future, everything's going to be connected, and that by, I think he said by 2018, that every Samsung product, so buy yours now, every Samsung product, because they do make great products, is going to be, interconnected. Everything sold will have the ability at least, and maybe not just the ability, but maybe it'll be requirement, much like how game systems, by and large, to get get real use out of them, you have to be connected to the internet now, as to where consoles used to be able to work pretty independently, which I thought was great, but apparently others don't think so. They don't want the option. They're just like, oh yeah, I'm going to connect to the internet. Internet of Things, will be completely integrated into every Samsung product. And he said, this will lead the way, and this is more or less a direct quote, this will lead the way to smart homes, smart cities. And now the term smart city isn't necessarily something new. Certainly IBM has talked about that. In fact, IBM has gone so far as to say smart planets, and which we'll talk about. I've got a 2001 special, a Space Odyssey special coming out. We'll talk more about IBM during that. But, a smart planet, but this isn't, that's the thing. That's where Samsung didn't go that direction. They didn't say smart Earth or that, it's very interesting what they said after smart cities. They said smart nations. Ooh. Now, let's be very clear here that these speeches are heavily prepared. Every word is chosen with absolute caution. Granted, Samsung flounders often enough at their own events. They seem to be completely out of touch many times with the sensibilities of their consumers. But I found it interesting that he used the phrase smart nations, as in this was an appeal to some degree of nationhood, of patriotism. And you could say, well, it's just something he said, you just kind of pass it off. And yeah, maybe it should just be passed off. But I think it's more a hint into what Internet of Things is really all about. And it is about control. Control of your life, not by you, not you controlling your life, but the they, them, those, the powers that be, whatever, controlling your life. Picture how far all of that can go. And please, I hate, because I think we're at a crossroads. Okay. I was reading an amazing book this week called The Internet Is Not the Answer by Andrew Keen, who is, this is a guy that's been in the tech world long before I was born. Okay. And it's interesting because he was on with Leo Laporte on the show Triangulation in this past week. And he was saying, he says, a lot of people he was making the case that we are at some degree of crossroads to where we may have a choice. And Julian Assange said the same thing, that the internet, there have always been choices for the internet to not be, to not hand over so much power to corporations, to companies or to governments themselves, all of these things. And Andrew Keen kind of was making the same point, because he says we're at a real crossroads now where we might be able to steer the ship a bit of a different way. And no one's, and that's the thing. Nobody's saying that no one I'm talking about, and I'm certainly not. No one's talking about Luddites or Ludditism or Luddism, whatever they call it. It's talking about steering it in a different direction. Like I said, changing the relationship with technology. But Andrew Keen was making the case that a lot of people he's talking to, a lot of veterans in the tech world, a lot of up and coming people are saying this interconnectedness is, the negatives are far outweighing the positives. And there are positives, but the negatives are far outweighing it. And I think that's interesting, especially when these companies clearly have it in mind that what they are putting out there at the heart of it ends off. Again, take this as a timeline progression that the CEO of Samsung was telling you about. Smart homes, smart cities, smart nations. Unacceptable to any anarchist. A technology that bolsters the idea of a nation is antithetical to the goals of freedom. That's how it is, folks. Can you stop it? Can you keep it from getting released? No. But you can vote with your dollar, vote with your feet, whatever. You can, as a consumer, you can make choices still, right now. And I recommend exercising those choices before you don't have a choice. So many of these things I feel are absolutely about control, and they're failed. And, I'm glad at the very least, I've talked about Internet of Things in the past. I'm glad at the very least that they're already taking security very seriously with Internet of Things, and that they're working on that right away. Because that was a failure of the internet itself, is that people were not thinking about security, at first at all. And we're dealing with that now, Heartbleed and things of that nature. So, but I think this is, because one of the arguments I think, though, that's going to come up with this, with Internet of Things, is like, look, this is never, it's like the internet. This had never been done before. No, you're right. It's like the internet. And we know now, what the internet has done. Or we know the direction that we should have taken with the internet, like Julian Assange is talking about, like Andrew Keene talks about, like so many, like John C. Dvorak, so many other people, who have been there. They've seen how it could have been. They were, they had their eye on the prize. And they're telling you it didn't have to be this way. Well, here's our chance. It's very early on. And we have the opportunity to tell the market it doesn't have to be this way. Putting a chip in everything, make the case. Make the case for me. You can email me, brian@zomiaofflinegames.com. That's really all Internet of Things is at the end. And this is what they'll tell you. The companies are completely unabashed with the fact that they're selling you bullshit and with what it is. Okay? They are unabashed in saying Internet of Things is all about putting a wireless chip in every single fucking thing out there. Your choice. Anyway, I'll end it there. This is the second Sovryn Tech Quickie. If you don't like these little things, please. And this one ended up going forever too. They're not that quick. Maybe I'll find another name for them in the future. But of course, regular episode of Sovryn Tech coming out this week, and next week got a special for you. We are going to do. I was going to make it a surprise, but what the hell? It will be Dark Android 2. Yes, I will be updating my Dark Android special, and that is all about, how you can create a relatively anonymous, secure device, that you could, if you if you needed to run to the hills with, or if you just wanted, for doing various market actions with, this would be the way to do it. And so that will be out. A lot of people loved my first Dark Android. That will be coming out next week. That will be the special. So. And of course, another regular episode. I never miss them. Every Saturday, you've got a regular episode of Sovryn Tech coming out. And of course, we've been doing 2 releases per week for quite some time. And people do seem to be enjoying it. But please do send me feedback. If there is, to even, send me feedback. How do you feel about the direction of the show? How do you feel about, the topics that are being brought up? Let me know. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback, but if you've got negative feedback, that's important, or not negative, but if you have, constructive criticisms or whatever, please let me know. It's important for me to hear. I like to know, how my audience feels about anything. So anyway, Carpe Lucem, everybody. I'll see you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.